Okay, I want to start with Hamlet's first soliloquy. We've noticed Hamlet soliloquizes a lot. One of the marks of his character is how much and how intensely he speaks when he's alone, or at least believes he's alone. I want to go to not work through the entire first soliloquy, but just look really at that first line, which is famous and quotable, as so much in this play is quotable. If a lot of this play sounds familiar to you because you heard it quoted before, it is familiar, you've heard it quoted before. If it doesn't sound very familiar and it's not quite the quotable version you know because you have an edition translated into 21st century English, I urge you to get an actual edition of the actual Hamlet because, and here's the important part, I don't want you to flunk the class. That said, let's look at the extremely quotable line, "Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew." All right, he feels his flesh is dirty, he wants it to resolve into thaw, melt, thaw, resolve into a dew. You may have heard that quoted elsewhere as, "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt." Are people misquoting Shakespeare? People do misquote Shakespeare, but that's not what's happening here. Has some editor gotten this wrong? No. If only it were that easy. In some editions, you will have, if you have this edition, the one I ordered for class, it will say, "Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt." You might have another edition that says, "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt." Not because your editor's crazy or this editor's crazy. Neither of them are wrong. Both of these lines exist in actual early editions of Hamlet, or something close to them does. Here's our problem. Hamlet was printed more than once in and just after Shakespeare's lifetime in slightly different versions. The one version is very different than the other two. And at least two of them, maybe all three, really seem to be Shakespeare's. They're legitimate, they're very good, and there are favorite lines from Hamlet in both of those good ones. You can't just print one or the other, or you lose some famous lines that people who know Bartlett's familiar quotations are going to expect and miss and wonder. That's why actually your editor actually puts some sections from another version of the play here in a separate section. He doesn't print them in this text, but he puts them separately so that you won't feel cheated. So some editors here, this says sullied. Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt. Okay, but then again, this editor, equally smart, equally learned, has, "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt." How about this one over here? "Oh, that this too sallied flesh would melt." Sallied, that's not even a word we commonly use. Actually, this editor's onto something. One of the early printings says sallied, not sullied. So, yeah, I'm sorry, these two editors are, she and he are arguably correct. They're all correct. They all have a perfectly good reason to do this. Hamlet, like many of Shakespeare's other plays, is printed in multiple versions with variants during and just after his lifetime that all seem to be authorized to some degree. All seem perfectly good. And the editor has to choose. Also, the editor has to make various decisions about modernization, fixing things, getting rid of fixing errors. Early modern printing is much more an art than a science. These books are printed pretty messily, with some strange things that are probably mistakes, though the borderline for when you're fixing a mistake and when you're just kind of trying to make Shakespeare better is a blurry one. One thing how do you know what you're reading is by Shakespeare and what's by your editor? Any good editor will admit it. So here, in your edition, on page Roman numeral 55, that's LV for those of you who aren't Romans, we have a list of emendations, where your editor has gone through, in fairly small type, and listed all the many changes, many small changes he's made. He's also done other things to modernize. He's changed spelling just to make it modern, punctuation. These were the larger small changes. He doesn't have space to list all the tiny changes he made. I want you to know they're there. And these are exactly the kinds of changes of just a syllable here or word there that can really affect exactly the kind of reading that English majors train to do, the kind of close detail of language arguments that we can build a paper on or an exam essay on. You will find, for example, that in your take-home midterm, there's a quotation from this play, spoilers, that says, "There is a willow that grows askant the brook." Your editor is one of the lonely ones saying askant, or many other editors say aslant. Is somebody misquoting Shakespeare? No, everybody's making a different choice about the fairly messy,